Good day, everyone. We are back with another webinar, No Hidden Gems, How to Display Your Hotel's Best Offerings, Increase Direct Bookings, brought to you by Stay in Touch, My Hotel Shop, and StarDeck. I want to thank our guests for joining us today. I'm your host, Frigola, and I'm joined by my panel today. First up is Uli Kastner, founder and managing director at My Hotel Shop. Uli has worked in the hotel industry since 1996. He's worked in the field of e-commerce and was responsible for online activities for Hilton and Accor hotels in Germany, amongst others. Uli has also worked for the travel website TripAdvisor as head of sales Central Europe before he went on to manage the hotel division of the Unister Group for 2 years. In the summer of 2012, Uli founded and launched My Hotel Shop, and since then, more than 2,000 hotels have signed up to work with the marketing and content distribution platform. Joining us from StarDeck is Director of Sales and Business Development, Michael Weisenbrunn. Michael has worked within the hotel technology space for the past 8 years, covering various aspects from distribution and revenue management to big data and business intelligence. Before Michael ventured into technology, he spent 10 years within the hotel hospitality industry at the user side of the hotel technology chain. Michael is now heading up the commercial team at StarDeck and in charge of sales and marketing throughout the organization. And rounding out our panel is founder and CEO of Stay in Touch, Jas Shop. Jas has over 20 years of experience in hotel software technology. He began Stay in Touch with a vision of reinventing the hotel PMS technology, making it simple, mobile, and transitioning the software to the cloud. Prior to Stay in Touch, Jas spent 17 years at Microsystems as a senior vice president in charge of global product development and strategy for the lodging and e-commerce divisions. During his tenure, Michael's hospitality products became the global market leader, growing the company's revenues from less than $300 million to $1.1 billion. All right, time to run through the agenda and we will get started. We're going to focus on how your marketing can create a direct booking experience and increase your online visibility, using APIs to connect your PMS to your hotel's website to capture and display a real-time view on rates and availability, and how a responsive booking engine can increase conversions and increase your bottom line. And before we hand it off to the first presenter today, I'm going to have you guys participate in one poll. When looking for tech solutions for your property, what is the most important thing you consider? Service level of each provider, ease of use, usability, features and functionality, API connection integrations, or price? Give you guys about 30 seconds, and then I will close the poll. All right, about 10 more seconds here. Right, I am closing the poll now. Sharing the results. Looks like most of you care most about the features and functionality, which we know is all too important. So, with that said, we are going to move over and start a discussion with the first presenter of the day. Uli is going to speak about how to focus your marketing to create a direct booking experience and increase your online visibility. Uli?
Thanks. Hi, everyone, and good evening to the European people and good morning to the Americans. My name is Uli Kastner. I'm the CEO of My Hotel Shop, and we are a meta search company that is connecting specifically individual hotels and small hotel chains to the large meta searches like Trivago, TripAdvisor, Google, and the like. When we talk about driving visibilities for hotels, I think there are 2 or 3 most important things to remember. Number one is when you want to increase your direct business, I mean, there are basically 2 to 3 major levers. Lever number 1 is you obviously need to have more traffic on your website, because if you get more traffic on your website, you should get more revenue. Lever number two is obviously your conversion rate, which specifically my two fellow participants today in that call will talk about. So how can you drive your conversion once you get traffic to your website, how to convert that best. And obviously, number three is rates and availability, because without attractive rates and without proper availability, nobody can actually book you in the first place. So my focus will be predominantly on how you can actually drive traffic to a website. And I have a little overview of actually a chart that I've been using for the last 10 years. That's why it's potentially not in the most fancy layout, but I love using it because it hasn't changed much over the last 10 years. Because in the end, you have to look at the customer journey, and you need to look at guys like Booking.com and Expedia and how they actually developed the business over the last years. So predominantly, people obviously search on platforms like you can see in the top right, Google, Trivago, TripAdvisor, also smaller platforms coming up, social platforms becoming more important. But it's actually, when you really look at the majority where the traffic in the hotel industry comes from, it's really Google, TripAdvisor, and Trivago. So these three guys obviously provide a lot of traffic, and guys like Booking.com and Expedia actually buy most of their traffic and most of their business from those platforms, and they refinance it basically by the commissions you pay to them. So it's as simple as that. So in a nutshell, when you drive your own online business and when you want to increase your own bookings on your website, you should obviously try to put your own website into that booking corridor where Booking and Expedia are actually buying most of the traffic. And if you go on TripAdvisor and Trivago today and you make a price comparison for your hotel, you will see that your hotel, and as long as you haven't connected your own website, you will see your hotel is sold there. And you are indirectly paying for it because you pay a commission to these guys, and those guys basically go to these platforms, buy the clicks, and to put it simple, I guess they wouldn't do it if they weren't profitable doing that. So if the commission you pay to them is usually, let's say, on average 10 euro, and they spend 5 euro on traffic on Expedia, on Trivago and TripAdvisor, they obviously have a nice profit margin. And the whole idea of online business is that you take your own website into that booking funnel and you connect it straight to these platforms and drive the traffic to you. Jumping the supply chain basically and shortening it out by one player and trying to therefore reduce your costs. So when we speak to hotels, our main pitch is actually not that we drive additional revenue through the website, but that we shift business in the first place from an indirect channel to their own channel, and potentially for a lower cost. So let me endeavor on that a little bit more so we can go on to the next slide, Frioma. Perfect. So basically, when we say why you should do direct business and why you should do online marketing, you should also ask the question what business models it is, because you mainly talk about cost per click business models. So it's a more risky model. You have to pay for the click that you get from Google. You have to pay for the click you get from Trivago and TripAdvisor. But as I said, you're sold on Meta and Google anyway, because the OTAs are nowadays doing it, and they pay the CPC, and they have the core competency to do so. So that's obviously something we need to learn from them. And if we want to have customers back, and if we want to own them on a long-term relationship, I think the best customer, and we all know that, are customers that come to us directly. Because face it, when you go 10, 20 years back, our majority of the customers came direct by telephone, by fax. We just lost them over to the online guys, because with the growth of the internet and with the complexity of the supply chain over the last years, those guys just jumped in and took over that direct business from us and moved it over to them. And now it's time to win it back through our own website. And that reduces our OTA dependency. It will hopefully increase our visibility and market share again, because if people can't find you, you won't be booked. So you need to work on that visibility, and you need to get that visibility and get your website in there. And that's usually the trend we have, once we connect hotels to guys like Trivago and TripAdvisor, the first step, as I said, is not increasing business and increasing market shares, is actually just shifting business for a lower cost. But then obviously, once we've done that, the second phase is always also how can we improve ranking? How can we improve visibility on platforms like Google and Trivago as well, to then on the second phase also increase your business. The most important thing is really Do you need guys like Booking.com and Expedia at all? I think yes, you do. But for many, many things, you potentially don't need them. Take a simple example. If someone Googles your hotel name on Google, so type in your own hotel name, who's usually coming up on #1 ad space on AdWords, it's usually not your websites, it's usually Booking and Expedia. And sometimes I wonder if that is actually the deal we have with OTAs, that they steal away customers I would get anyway. So, but unfortunately, that's the nature of the business, so we need to fight back and take over that channel again. Another reason is also because a lot of people ask me, well, if Trivago and TripAdvisor and my hotel is sold on those channels anyway, well, let them do it. I don't take the risk and let just them do it. Well, if you want to do that, you can do that, but don't argue in 2 or 3 years that you are depending on Booking and Expedia because they are the only 2 channels that provide business to you anymore. You need to open up to new channels, and you need to see at Google, at Trivago, at TripAdvisor. Yes, there are channels that cost you money too, but if you have 4 or 5 or 6 channels feeding your customer, feeding your hotel, that obviously also means that you have a choice. And if one partner gets too strong and too expensive, you can shift the business to someone else. I know that cost per click is risky. I know it is not an easy business model that comes naturally with hotels. But if you do it, you can optimize your visibility. You can do it on a much deeper level. You can, as a simple example, on Google, you can actually target people very, very focused on mobile devices. You can actually target them by your average daily rate. You can put your CPC higher if your average daily rate is high. If it's lower, you can put it lower. Even on the length of stay, you can bid your CPC. How much granular approach do you have on commission? On Booking, you just pay one commission. You cannot pay a commission for mobile bookings. You cannot pay a commission for desktop bookings. You cannot pay a different commission for different people from different countries. So that's something on a CPC is much, much granular. And in the end of the day, what we see is that you actually can pay less than via commissions as well. And I come to some examples as well. But most important, you need to understand it, and you need to optimize it on a daily level. And you can imagine what my hotel shop is doing, because obviously a lot of hotels don't have the know-how, they don't have the time to optimize it. So that inventory management or that revenue management 3.0, which means CPC management with rates, is something obviously we can help you with. And I know that a lot of hotels see it as a risk, and a lot of hotels are afraid of doing so. But that's the point about risk. Booking and Expedia took the risk at the time, and now they are where they are. And if you don't take any risks in life, I think the biggest risk is not to take any of them. Next one, please. So give you some facts, because obviously we've been doing that with a lot of hotels. And so obviously we have not only a theory, we have a lot of practical applications. Just to give you an idea again, if you look at the Booking and Expedia volume that your hotel gets today, and it might differ a little bit from countryside hotel to city hotels, but we can say that, and we know that, and I worked for these guys in the past as well, that more than 50% of the bookings you get from them are actually indirectly coming from platforms like Meta, Google, or affiliate websites. Just to give you an idea, Booking.com spends more than $3 billion a year on Google advertising. That's on average €5,000 per property that they have listed. Same thing on Trivago and TripAdvisor, huge spendings of both of them. Actually, both of them own parts of those meta searches, while Booking owns Kayak and Expedia owns parts of Trivago. So you need to jump into that supply chain. And we have 1,700 hotels that have been doing so. And we can measure exactly how much money they spend on those platforms, how much traffic they get to their website, and also what the return of investment is. So we can see they spend $1,000 and they make $10,000 on their website. We have a tracking tool, we have a technology measuring that, so we can see the costs are 10%. And I can tell you that of all those hotels, 80% of those hotels have lower cost on CPC campaigns than what they would pay to OTA commissions. So they have a clear increase in profitability. Yes, there are 20% of the hotels that are not successful, but it's definitely a minority. Just to give you, and that's basically on meta search. I'll give you a similar example on Google AdWords. On Google AdWords, it looks even better. Obviously, it depends how far you go, because Google AdWords is a very wide range, but the average distribution cost on Google AdWords with our 200 hotels currently is at 8%, while the average distribution cost on a commission model with Booking and Expedia is somewhere around 15 to 20%. So when we look at an average My Hotel Shop hotel, we usually have a split of the total business where over 25% comes directly through the website. Compare that to your own numbers. Many hotels we started with are usually starting around 10%, 8%, sometimes even less. So if we bring our hotels up to 25, 30%, and that business again is taken away predominantly from OTAs or also from very expensive telephone offline bookings. That means, in a nutshell as well, that those hotels on average have an increase in profitability, which means in total profitability of their rooms revenue of 2 to 3% a year. If you take that into your total revenue per year, you might want to know, I mean, some hotels can easily afford several employees on that profitability per year. So what you need to success, what you need for success, and the other speakers will talk about more, you definitely need a state-of-the-art booking engine. So listen to Michael very, very closely. You need a responsive website because most of that traffic we talk from Google, TripAdvisor, and Trivago comes mobile. So TripAdvisor and Google, most of them actually have more than 50% of the traffic coming from mobile. Without responsiveness, you will lose. We have a big discussion on rate parity. We know that hotels that have a lower price on their website are more successful. There is no reason for rate parity. Give it a try. It's 5%, but you'd have to potentially charge less, and you can already see significant increases in your ROI. But the most important thing is you need to handle these marketing costs, because a lot of hotels see cost per click as a marketing cost, as a distribution cost. And that's what we do. We tell you how much you spend, but we calculate it into a commission that you can compare then to the commissions you pay to the OTAs. So obviously that's what you need to succeed, and obviously if you can do it on your own, you still need a platform to do so. So we have two options. You can either work with My Hotel Shop by managing everything on your own through our platform. So we are a pure technology platform that helps you to actually technically do it. But then, to be honest, with 80 to 90% of our clients, we also manage the campaigns for them like an agency. And we figured out that that is usually an even more successful way of doing so. And that's something we're more than glad to offer to you.
All right, thank you so much, Uli. That was pretty insightful, and I think every hotel has to understand that in order to be a part of the game, you've got to make sure that your website, first and foremost, is optimized, because that's where you are going to see the largest conversions.
Absolutely.
All right, so with that said, I'll pass it over to Yashab, who's going to speak about using APIs to connect the PMS to the hotel website so that you are displaying your best rates and availability.
Great, thanks, Free. Before I go through my slides and my subjects or topics about APIs and the mobile PMS, I wanted to actually ask Uli a question. So hopefully I'm not surprising him too much. But while listening to his comments about direct bookings, I was thinking about there's always the question, can a hotel survive with direct bookings alone, or should the focus be OTA? I mean, what do you think should be the right mix for hotels to actually overall come out above?
Very good question, and you're completely right. You cannot survive without OTAs. We tried it. We actually did several tests with some hotels where we turned off Booking or Expedia, and it's not possible because they do bring you incremental business, but they also bring you a lot of business that you can get yourself, and that's really the key word is mix, right? You need a portfolio, and your website should definitely, because mostly we talk about hotels having a minority of the bookings coming through their website, right? So it's actually about bringing it from 5% to 25%. You still have 75% coming in through other channels. But having it at 5% is clearly not an option because it puts you too much into dependency with other channels. So that's all I'm telling my hotels. It's your website will never get 70 or 80%. You're not a Marriott, you're not a Hilton, but even those guys don't get there, right? But I think we have enough experience and we have enough data to prove that a hotel can easily come up with a share of 20, let's say, in cities, even up to 45%. Above 50, very difficult.
Okay. So, I mean, and you mentioned there that I think that's maybe a good leeway in for me. You mentioned that, the hotels, the bookings that come in through OTA, you can also get yourself. So, which I guess would imagine that if they come in initially through an OTA, you probably want to try to somewhere along the check-in and check-out process to make them your own booking, so to speak, by finding out their contact details so that next time they come around, they go to your hotel's website. Sorry, go ahead, Uli.
Yeah, well, that's obviously the long-term strategy, right? If you have them once on your website, then you obviously ultimately need to win them back and keep them as a loyal customer. That's a super difficult one, right? Because obviously guys like Marriott and Hilton with a rewards program have much stronger tools there. But as an individual hotel, yes, through CRM and through a good database management, you can absolutely do that. And I guess you will sure have some tips on that side. We are more coming from the area that we say, well, first of all, get the clients you would get anyway through Google and Trivago and TripAdvisor, but who come through OTAs rather directly, then open up those channels for you. Once you get them, right, once you have them in your database, then guys like you come into the game, right, to help hotels to keep them, and so they're not coming back through those expensive channels anymore. Personally, I believe that is only partially possible, so we will not be able to do that with all clients because it's a super challenging and competitive market out there, and you know that the next competitor is always a mouse click away, so people keep on searching even though they're getting less loyal. Unfortunately, that's a trend we've seen.
Great, cool. All right, cool. So I'm going to talk a bit about APIs and how important they are, as well as integrations, I think, to both what we're talking about here, booking engines, booking platforms, and the likes thereof. The one thing that I wanted to kind of touch on a little bit is when I saw the survey earlier on in this webinar, I was kind of surprised that only very few percentages are interested in service. Most of you guys are looking for features. Also only 13% was interested in having an application that would provide APIs. I think that's probably something that I'm hoping is going to change over the next year or so. Definitely on the service side, when we talk to customers on a very regular basis, not to say that we are always perfect. There's a lot of complaints about the legacy PMS systems and the legacy hotel software vendors that their service is lacking or not existence at all. So I would imagine that service probably is something that is of importance, especially when we as vendors are going to what we call software as a service, and you sign up a yearly agreement. You probably want to try to find vendors that provide service proactive and actively. On the API side, if I think back that the hoteliers are looking for features and benefits from an application, then I think APIs can be very beneficial to that point of view. I think vendors have tried in the past to build everything for everybody. I think that with today's fast pace of changing software, it's just very, very difficult to achieve. Which is why I think many of the platforms out there today provide APIs. I mean, Salesforce.com is a great example. It's been around obviously for many years. It started off as a CRM sales system, but it now also has an entire platform to which other ecosystems and other applications can connect to enhance the services that Salesforce can provide using their platform. And I think the same thing is what we're going to see in hospitality. There's already a few vendors that are providing APIs, SiteMinder is working on it, Snapshot's working on it, and there's a few other ones that are building platforms that allow easier integration and sharing of data between applications. So I think it's very much the key to connectivity to have an API. And to look for software that provides those APIs that can do certain things all the way from checking availability to booking to check-in to check-out, adding a posting, you name it, you name it, what you're trying to achieve within your hotel. The more open your system is, the more you can potentially add to it. And I think while it's still a learning curve, and while we're still building all these applications as in the vendor ecosystem of hospitality, there is definitely an increased capability possible with these APIs. Now, for this purpose of this webinar, I think the API is very much around trying to achieve direct booking, which I guess would mean that you have to have a PMS that provides APIs that can not only through the things like a channel manager or a CRS system, but also that in addition to that, the PMS can provide bookings directly into the PMS, surpassing all kinds of transaction fees. I think what Uli brought up is very important, and I'm sure what Michael is going to add to that is is also important. The first thing that Uli brought up is obviously it's awesome when you can build a great website, but if nobody can find the website that has then great APIs that connect into your PMS, the booking engine that you have built will not be very successful. So in addition to have a strong API that provides great availability, you have to make sure that things like SEO and SEM are in place, and Uli talked about that already, so that people can find that awesome booking engine. But the advantage I think that an API brings is that you can personalize the booking process much more. You can add more components to it. You can provide more services. You can add in the upsell opportunity from upgrades already at that point if you want to, because you have online access to available opportunities within that. Next slide. I think the other thing that obviously a mobile PMS would provide that has the APIs and that would be connected to your website is that now the revenue manager or the general manager, whoever is responsible for the pricing structure, can on a very regular basis in a very easy way check, open and close those rates, which would then immediately come into effect on the website to allow, you know, hotel guests to book the right booking for the right amount of money. So in addition to having an API, I think being able to be mobile, being able to, and Uli talked about it as well, and not only the guest wants to book mobile, but I think also staff and hotel managers want to be able to do things away from their front desk. So in addition to having an API, having a mobile PMS that allows access to manage those APIs, I think is strategic and very important. Next slide. You know, in addition to that, in order for people to sell a room and in order to have rooms available, it's important, I think, especially when it gets to same-day bookings, which sometimes can happen on the website, that you are turning around rooms at a fast pace and that you always have them available. Again, where mobility comes in, whether this is, you know, connected through an API housekeeping application, or whether it's inside the PMS, you know, third-party housekeeping applications such as Hot Sauce, such as NoCross, such as Alice, are very useful in expediting room turnover, which then obviously increases the capabilities for hotels to sell those rooms. I think what's also very important here is that if you build a booking engine and you add it directly from the PMS onto your website, if that PMS can also provide check-in and check-out APIs, then you can basically allow your guests to not only book from the website, but also do the check-in from your website as well as the check-out from your website, or through provided notifications. I think a very important aspect of the future, because people today, they want to be in control of their own destiny. They don't necessarily want to have to go to a front desk to check in or check out. They want to be in full control of everything they do. So again, mobile opportunities that should be provided with the PMS are very important, both for staff and for guests. And it definitely helps, I think, also turning over rooms faster, and therefore gives a lot more revenue opportunities. Next slide.
All right, thanks, Jos. I think you said something very interesting, which was all of the information on the back end, you know, from an operational side is being funneled from the PMS to the booking engine and is displayed on the website. But what kind of information from the guest is then communicated back to the PMS? How much information? Is it the whole guest profile? Is it their, you know, their preferences, or is it just the reservation information?
That all depends. I mean, I think if the hotel can build a nice website, and if you know, services like the ones that Uli provide can get guests to come to the website, then the booking process can be enhanced with not only, you know, first name, last name, arrival and departure date, but you can also ask for preferences. You can ask for email addresses. You can ask for all kinds of stuff that you can then use later on during the check-in or check-out process, or while on site, to further enhance that experience of that guest and provide upsell opportunities as well.
Awesome. So that just continues the guest experience from booking to stay and then post, you know, departure. So we are going to move along to Michael, who's going to speak about how a responsive booking engine can increase conversions and increase your bottom line. Michael?
Sorry, I was still muted. Hi, thank you very much, and thank you, Ulrich and Jos, for your great insights that you just shared with us. And I can't agree more with you that the open APIs and getting the customers onto your website is a great challenge and a great possibility and opportunity. So if you could go to the next slide, and then I can tell you a little bit of what we at Startec are all about. Like we bring the technology actually to the hotels to support the hospitality. So we were speaking earlier with Jos about open APIs. We are fully open API. We have 500 partners connected to our software, and we try to deliver everything to the hotelier to make sure that they can create their strategy in the way that they would like to profile themselves. To give you a little bit of an idea, like you see a funny picture here where you can see that it's not always that easy to book via your mobile or via a tablet into an hotel group or even an independent hotel. So what we wanted to discuss here is like how important it is to be easily bookable and to be responsive, and how this can help you to drive direct bookings. We very much noticed that at Startec that still a lot of hotels do not really have a good idea about how the experience of their guests are on their own website, and they don't try and error too often or ask their guests like how their experiences were online to optimize their website activity. One of those things, for example, is like, do the hotels know how many people are using actually the smartphone and the tablet to book into their hotels? And we also see a lot of hotels coming to us saying like why are the conversion rates so low on the website? Or like Ulrich was saying, like you're always dependent on the OTAs, and they have huge budgets available to do their marketing and to do great efforts to get the guests to the hotels. And how can you, as a single hotelier or as a group, be able to work along that and get some of that traffic going to your own website? So that's what I wanted to speak about a little bit more. And we can definitely see from the hotels that are using our platforms and that ask us advice to reorganize their website or to ask them advice how to reorganize their strategy, is that often the website is a great story that the hotel wants to tell, but it's not always as optimized as it could be to also increase the booking stream. So if we would go to the next slide, then here we can see a little bit about the website and the important features of a website that we think a website needs to have to deliver just that. So obviously, Jos and Ura spoke about the importance of SEO. We support that as a company for the hotels. We work with templates or completely personalized systems where we help the hotels to optimize the SEO, and we help them as well to optimize their website users. But other things come in mind as well. So if a guest finally finds you through the jungle of OTAs and all kinds of websites and online platforms that offer your hotel, and they have found your website, which often still happens. So if they have pre-selected you out of a selection of a couple of the hotels they found interesting in the area, they often do end up on your own website, but they only will be there for a couple of minutes. And how are you then able to get this visitor loyal to your website and don't lose them to the SEO or to the parties that are offering the same product? So we think that one of the most important things is that you do tell that story that we spoke about. Like, you do have to give them a feeling of what you do, how you are, and how you stand out to the rest. But other than that, you also have to be very visible with your booking engine, and you really need to give good pictures, because people only give you those couple of minutes. So they want to see what the offering is, they want to see what you want to sell as an experience, and obviously the pricing is very important. So the booking engine has to be always in sight when they are in the website, even if they scroll around. And it just needs to look professional. If you have an outdated website, a lot of guests will get a little bit worry about the fact if the website is still legit and safe to book. So offer something different. So also, like, if the guests come to your website, give them something else that somewhere else is not available. So you can work with packages or strengthen your story by putting reviews on your own website that you can manage. You can capture these via the website itself, or you can get to these when people are checking in. You can ask them on tablets to write reviews about their stay, etc., etc. But try to not only tell your story, but also the story of the guests that have been there before, because this will help people trusting the brand, trusting the offering, and make them book at your website instead of returning to other platforms that are offering the same. The easy booking process stays very important. It should not be complicated. It should not be overfilled with many rates or many different things. So make a pre-selection, try and error, add things, take things away, move it around, and make sure that you keep up to date also with the time of year that you are profiling certain packages. Another thing that we think is very important nowadays is that you do profile management in your booking engine. So you can see in the little small picture on the left button that there is a bit of profile management on the website going on. So people can create their own accounts. Like try to capture as much as data as you can, but also give them the ability to log in again when they come back and do not have to fill out the information again that have done so before. This gives them also an easier booking experience and will higher the chances that they would actually directly book on your website. So if we would go to the next slide, then we can have a bit of a look about what is actually happening on the website. So here we are going to show the figures that we're experiencing about where are your bookers coming from and how much is that being delivered by the different entities. So if you look at the desktop in the region that we are operating, mainly in Western Europe, we can still see that the desktop has a large share in the bookings, but this is increasingly decreasing, and the mobile is really getting its fair market share. So getting this strategy in order, make sure that everything is laid out for a good, friendly experience on the mobile as well is very, very important. As you can see, that 26% of the offerings are nowadays coming to our mobile app to the 5,000 hotels that we are offering our solutions. So if we would look at the booking data, so like how many days in France, or like how does the cycle works, we think it's important to be aware of this, also to set pricing and etc. Obviously to stay competitive. But it's also important to keep track on this, to know what is happening on your website and how you can improve the experiences and how much effect certain changes on your website or certain offering has on this data. So 79% of hotel services are still 30+ days in Europe before arrival. So that's quite a huge sum. So we can see that is mainly what is driving from the desktop. But if you have last minute offering, like make sure that your mobile devices are ready, because we can see a massive increase of last minute bookings coming to your mobile devices. So all of these often also surface a different kind of guest profile, different kind of booking behavior. So yeah, this is kind of like highlighting the importance of creating on all those entities the right booking stream. So if we move to the next slide, we can speak a little bit more about how you can make it a little bit more attractive on your website for the booker or for the visitor to really stay on your website and not to wander off to other platforms again. Like what we already spoke a lot about the importance of working together with the other OTAs and the amount of traffic they bring to you and the amount of reservations they bring to you, which is very important indeed. And we believe as well that they are the main supplier of bookings. But if the guest is coming on your website, you would try to keep them on there and try to make them aware of the fact that they can book at your own site at a good rate, or you can offer a different rate, or at least show them that you are competitive and they don't need to leave, and give them that awareness, or at least for the security that they book for the best rate on your website as well. So in that sense, try to make sure that your website competes to the websites of other suppliers, so the hotel guests do not feel like they get a better understanding or a better explanation about your offerings on other locations. So yeah, The rate box that we're showing on the left-hand side showed us a great increase of direct reservations, actually, and even above my expectations, because this product is, for me, just showing what you've already seen online. But for people that are coming to visit your hotel, it's actually a great a tool to make them feel at ease in the fact that, all right, this is actually the best price, and I do not have to go back, and I do kind of like I respect this website, and I think it's legit, so I can stay here. And about some of the hotels do really have 75% of their direct bookings coming straight at the rate box. So they go from the rate box straight into the booking engine and finish their reservation straight away, which is a great result. Not all the hotels, normally it's around 30, but there are hotels that are reaching this kind of percentages, especially in the city areas. So it's also like a nice eye catcher. It's another pop-up. Make sure that the rates are there, that people don't lose attention on your website. They often also want to know what the rate is because they've seen hotels before already, and they just want to be reassured of the price that is on offer for the day that they've been looking. So if we would go to the next slide, we also think that it's important for the guests that we retarget them as well. So as an hotel, we often get stuck in really working with the guests at the moment that they're in the hotel and give them the best experience whilst they're there, which is obviously very important. That is the goal of being a hotel and being in the industry, is like giving your guests a very good experience. But often as well, it's like the importance of the bookings and the reservations is that you retarget them after they visit the hotel. So the experience doesn't stop after they visit, or it doesn't begin at the moment they check in. Obviously, hotels don't always have a lot of time available, so on request of many of the independent hotels that are using us, we created a tool for the hotels that 24/7 is able to communicate with the hotels and give them tips or give them updates, about what they can suspect and what there is on offer. So you can, by using these emails as well, you can keep your brand alive among the stack of emails they get from other suppliers, etc., etc. You make the awareness of the hero out there, that and especially if they had good experiences, they will definitely remember, and you will put your brands back in their back on their agenda, and they will find you again. So this is very much our idea of how we should build relationships further with the guest, also when they're already checked out, but in a very easy way, where it's all automated and all communicating with all the other systems. If you speak about the communication of all the other systems, you kind of head back to the API uses. It's obviously very important that the software that we are offering and the software that most other suppliers are offering are all speaking together in the most coherent way. So we also are a company that believes very much so in open APIs, and we serve in lots of partnerships that fuel our software with even more abilities. Like if you look at Uri, that is helping the hotels to be notified on all the different platforms out there, is something that really is a good combination with the booking engine that we supply, because if the more traffic comes to the website, obviously the chances to hide the direct bookings is great, and then taking the uses of the abilities of our booking engine and the example of the emailing list and many other examples around. Like you said, like there are also applications out there that help you just to check in, check out straight from your iPhone, and especially if you are in a certain age range as a target market, these kind of applications are very important for the guest experience. So that is what we try to do. We try with our websites, with the emailing list and all our products, we try to help the hotels supply the best guest experience when they are trying to find the hotel, book the hotel, whilst they're at it, but also when they're already left. And that leads us to the next slide, I think.
And before we get to the audience poll questions, I want to ask you one, Michael. How do you guarantee that the hotel booker has a real hotel brand experience?
So if you, the brand experience is Like, you mean how you can guarantee it, like that the guest feels like they experience the brand of the hotel? So obviously you need to have a good story on your website. You need to show who you are, what you're aiming at, and then obviously with using your correct marketing ways and your so with the emailing service, for example, to rebrand them and keep your logo out there to make sure that you communicate to them. In this sense, with the emailing list, if they stayed with Valentine's at your hotels and you would go out like 10 months later for a new Valentine's deal, they still would remember that they stayed at your hotel. They might remember your hotel, but then reminding them on your brands with your logos in that email. Or when you do the online marketing, then you can retarget them at certain points as well. Then by branding it, as like pretty much what Bookingcom or all the other OTAs are doing as well. It's like the more that they pop up everywhere where you go online, like every website that you follow, you can see pop-ups from branding of other players in the market. And as long as you don't move with that, they would lose the ID that they have stayed at your hotel, but they would remember that they stayed at that hotel from that OTA. And by moving with those OTAs and offer the similar kind of services or reminders, you will stay relevant, and they will remember you as a brand as well.
Awesome. All right, so we're going to go into the audience questions. First one's for you, Uli. How can a hotel control costs per click spendings?
Well, through technology, and that's what you have to do, right? So obviously you need to make sure that if you go live on placements like on Google or on Trivago, that people don't kind of like click endlessly and produce thousands of clicks through your website because it costs money. So there are various ways of doing it. I cannot really go into details on algorithms because it would definitely be too boring for that call. So if anyone is interested, we can do that separately. But the way we do it is we thought about simple solutions. So in the end of the day, you can compare it if you give a mobile phone to your kid, right? You can, if you put it on a monthly scheme and she calls someone in China, it can become very expensive. So we decided for a prepaid option. So we basically have a system where you can upload a budget, and you can say, let's say $500 or $1,000 for a placement like Trivago. Then you can allocate a cost per click, which you can change every day, which you can also change per market and stuff like that. So you have a dashboard for that. But as I said, usually we do this for hotels. And then you set an expected commission, and that's the most important thing. So you can set basically a maximum cost that you're willing to pay for your CPC placement. And then basically the machine is optimizing your campaign. And that's our software and our people. They're optimizing your campaign. And the money is spent. So at some point after a week or a month, the money you put into your prepaid account is gone. And then obviously you want to decide if you want to move on or not, right? And actually the machine does that for you. So it optimizes the best result because we can see how much bookings we generate and what the best CPC is for you to actually get the bookings and get revenue. And then we calculate cost divided by revenue, very simple, which brings you to an effective commission. And if that commission is, let's say, 11% and your maximum commission you set is 20, the system recognizes, okay, the CPC was spent wisely, so add another $1,000. But if your expected commission is higher than the commission you actually set the system as a goal, let's say it's 22%, then the campaign automatically stops and nothing can happen. And that's what we figured out is the most successful way of doing it, because you can actually set a CPC placement through a highest commission level that you set to the system. You avoid going beyond that certain cost, and if you go beyond, the maximum money you can lose is the money you paid in that account. And then it automatically stops. But then obviously if your results are really worse, you should definitely reevaluate, because then there's usually a problem with the conversion or with your pricing or with your website, right? Something is going wrong. And those questions are obviously also need to be answered, right? Because if you really have a bad result, then usually you need to find out why. And by the way, also you should find out if your results are good, why the results are good, because maybe you can make them better.
Awesome. All right, Jas, this one's for you. What should the hotel look for in regards to APIs in the PMS?
I think the most important thing is obviously that you buy a PMS that sits in the cloud, and if you want to connect anything to that, make sure that's also in the cloud. Because when you do that as a hotelier, you don't have to worry about buying any hardware, managing part of actually the integration. Most of that should then be done by the cloud providers themselves. Also, make sure that the PMS that you acquire either has an API portal or is working towards one, because when there's an API portal, then third-party vendors that you might want to do business with can go to those portals. They can connect themselves, they can certify themselves, and again, all that stuff that you used to worry about because it was all done in the basement of your hotel is now done by the cloud providers. So I think to summarize it, make sure that you have a cloud PMS and make sure that the APIs as well as your third parties are all in the cloud going forward to make integration faster and easier.
Awesome. And I wanted to pose this question to anyone on the panel. So you're competing with these big OTAs who have the advantage of pulling in, not just with big money, being able to reach a larger audience, but the folks that are booking there are very price conscious, right? And it's not just the rates that your individual hotel is displaying on your website that matters. The reason why they go to these big OTAs is because there's a comparison. They can compare and contrast what the price is from one hotel to the next. How do you differentiate that experience if someone comes to your hotel? Or should hotels be very much focused on the overall experience? Is that really where they can win here? What is the experience that guests have or potential guests have when they get to the website, and what's the experience they have during the stay? Is that really what they should be focusing on as a differentiator, the actual experience?
Who should go first? Michael?
I think we have to break up the questions maybe because it's a long question. But that's okay. Like I will try to give my best go. So if we are speaking about like how can you differentiate yourself, like pricing wise. So if they come to your website, normally they've already been on other websites before. So I'm not going to say all the time, but it would not be very likely that if I would go to Dallas tomorrow, that I would just type in a name and I found the hotel and I click on it and I found the price. So in all reality, like most people will look at first hand at Google Maps could be a source, or the OTAs, or like there's many sources out there where you type in hotel and everything pops up, and then obviously somehow you need to make a price adjustments. But it's also depending on the type of hotel. So I find it hard to say like this is the way to go, because the strategy is also depending on what kind of hotel you are and what kind of concept you are. So a big chain hotel might be a lot more price competitive than a small boutique hotel with a limited amount of rooms. So that there will be different strategies. So for one is the price is more important than the other. So what we offer, for example, is often, like I said before, like they have found you already on a pre-selection of pricing. So they would already have 4 or 5 hotels in the region they've seen, and they just look at the hotels quickly to see what is the offering on their own website or on TripAdvisor, or to see if they would like what they see and they like the experience of other guests, and then they make the decision. So if they are on the website, you're already kind of in the selection of like, you're affordable to me, and then it's very important that you do still show your price. And in our case, we offer the hotels also the ability to make them a member, like using the profile, and then and give them a member rate as well. So that if you would be the higher or the more expensive of the pack that has been pre-selected, then you still can compete in the sense like I do give you a better rate if you book directly with me. But again, that's all depending on the sort of hotel and what kind of strategy they should use, occupancy levels, all kinds of things. So it's very depending on the property.
Yeah, maybe let me quickly. I'm less romantic about that, right? Because obviously, yes, every consumer, I mean, has a different approach to that. But the maturity, and I always look at statistics only, and not so much about individual experiences, because hotels like to do that. They look at their clients and they think the rest of the world is acting like that. but the whole world acts pretty much, and only when you analyze data, and the data tells you that obviously, yes, people compare, people love to compare. People go on TripAdvisor, meta search places, Google, and so on, and they go to many websites to compare. And they will do it again and again and again, even if they have their most favorite hotel. And they go into different places and they love to change places. So that's a fact. So I think it's not going to be a reality in 5 or 10 years that hotels will have their regular clients back and can rely on that. That time is over. So they have to accept that people are out there and that they look, and that hotels need to pay for this visibility. That's a story of the internet. Visibility for money. The only problem, what I stated before, is if you have to pay 10 searches in a row, because in the end, if Booking goes on Trivago and Trivago goes on Google and Google goes on whatever, you have to pay for every step in that supply chain. So you need to shorten that supply chain. You need to go where people search in the first place, and don't let them find you, and then pay all of these steps. But you have to pay something. But you need to try to limit your costs. And then obviously, if you have them, yes, you can try to keep them. You can try to make them feel comfortable. This is definitely something you should focus on as well. But the most important thing in my perspective is, if people don't find you, nobody's come to your place, then you can have the best PMS in the world. If you have 10% occupancy, it doesn't make a lot of sense to have it. And hotels think far too little about visibility on that aspect, and they are not aware of new business models that are out there. If I speak to hotels, the only business model they know is commission, right? But new platforms create new business models, and that's something we need to learn. And if you don't learn it, someone else will do it for you, and we have to pay for it.
Absolutely. No, completely agree. So it's definitely, you need to be visible out there. You need the visibility online, and the ways as Ulrich explained are very important. Also in the sense of rate management, obviously it's hugely important that you are compatible, and that you make sure that you are aware by doing proper revenue management that you are compatible to the hotels in your own class, like your star ratings and the area, that you can compete on price-wise. And you can do that with many different RMS systems, or the PMS itself sometimes has a functionality.
Right, awesome. I think that is it for this discussion. Again, I want to thank our audience for sticking with us the whole way through, and I want to thank our panelists for giving us their great insight the whole way through as well. So please send any additional questions or comments to info@stayintouch.com. We'll forward them to the correct presenter, and you'll get a response. Also, the webinar recording and presentation will be available to all attendees and non-attendees within 24 hours. Once again, thank you all. See you next time.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you.